Welcome back, everybody. The weather's been really crappy outside. You know, kind of getting anxious, chomping at the bit to get out on the water, but it's just been cold and rainy. But the water temperature is slowly creeping up with the longer daylight hours that we have. That's a really important variable in bringing up the water temperature. So as it creeps up to 50 and a little bit above, the Tog Tog bite's really going to pick up here where I'm at in the Chesapeake Bay. So we're getting ready for that. So I want to show you what I do before I go out Tog Tog fishing. I like to tie a couple of dropper loop setups, dropper loop rigs. People call them different things, but I want to show you how I tie mine on. There's a couple different ways you can do it, but I'm going to show you my way. I'm going to show you with some rope so it's easy to see how I tie the knots. And then I'll show you how I physically tie them into the line, and then what type of weights that I like to use, what type of hooks I like to use. So if you like to Tog Tog fish, or you want to learn how to drop or tie up the dropper loop, this is going to be a good one. Stick around.
So I'm going to use rope in this video so you guys can see a little bit clearly better what I'm doing. First thing you do at the bottom of your leader, make a big bite, and then we're going to do just a standard overhand knot with both strands. We're going to pull it through, and we're going to do another overhand in that same loop and pull it tight cleanly, and make sure you're dressing your knots appropriately. Pull it tight, and that's the bottom, the surgeon's knot, and that's what's going to hold our weight onto our line. Then you're going to take your scissors, cut the tag off as close as you can once you're sure that you've got it tight enough. The next thing we're going to do is come up as high as we want our hook to be off of the bottom, and we're going to wrap the line around itself, and then we're going to twist it 4 times. And after the 4th time, we're going to take the opposite side, pull it through, and then again dressing our knots. Usually I would take that and put it in my teeth, but I can't on this video, and just pull the sides till it makes it tight. And then you've pretty much got your dropper loop. Whenever you're pulling your knots, make sure that you do it slowly and your line is wet to make sure that you have a really good knot addressed. Alright, so now here we're going to do the exact same thing. I've got 40-pound leader, making sure that we're leaving enough at the end that we're going to fit the weight that we want. The size of the weight's got to be able to fit through this surgeon's knot. So double overhand on the bite. Usually I would just put it in my mouth and get it wet. I'm just going to pinch my fingers, get them wet, and make sure that I get the leader line to slide really well. And then we just pull it tight. Make sure we got it real tight. Looks good. We can easily get the weight that I use through there. So then we'll take the scissors, cut the extra piece off the little tag end. And we've got our surgeon's knot complete just like that. And then we're going to come up again to the height that we want the hook to be. Make a loop in the line. Grab both ends separately. Twist 1, 2, 3, 4 times. And then push this line through. I'll reach into the middle and grab it. Usually I would bite that and pull it. Make sure it slides nicely. It's that simple, guys. And you can get to where you can do it in less than 30 seconds.
Alright guys, so we got our basic dropper loop tied up. One of the things I want to talk about first is why it's beneficial to tie your own. You can go online, you can buy them, they're expensive. They're anywhere from $3 to $6 a piece. If you do the math on this probably cost me 50 cents. Maybe a little more, but less than $1 for sure. The other advantage is you have the ability to adjust how deep off the bottom you want to be, how big of a loop you need, what diameter you're using. If I'm fishing in rocks versus rebar versus a sunk ship, you might want to change the diameter. For most of the stuff out here, I'm using 40-pound test because I want this to break if I can't get my weight out. If you fish for Tog Tog or bottom fish at all, you know you're going to lose some lead, okay? But I'd rather lose some lead than a whole lot of braid. So the other thing is you can adjust how far off the bottom you want to be by wherever you put your dropper loop. Off the bottom is how deep you're going to be fishing. So if you want to adjust that on the go, that's good to know. Another thing is, let's say you're out on the boat and you bought 4 or 5 dropper loop kits and you break them all off. We've all had those days. What do you do now? Well, now you know how to tie your own, right? As long as you got some leader, you can tie your own. So let's talk about some of the ways that you can set this thing up to fish. And the ways that I like to do it, there's a lot of different places people fish for Tog Tog. I'm in the Chesapeake Bay, so it may be a little bit different where you're at. But the tide determines how much weight we got. So I always keep a 2 ounce, a 4 ounce, a 6 ounce, and an 8 ounce to make sure I can get on the bottom. But the nice thing about the surgeon's knot on the bottom of this is you can literally pinch it down You can see here, slide it through the eye. Well, it's a lot easier if you don't drink a gallon of coffee before you do this. And once you got it slid through, you just put it on. And you want to make sure you dress this nice. Make sure your knot comes through. Okay. And now you're ready. So the tie's ripping first thing in the morning. Or, you know, when you first get out there, you want to use a heavier weight. You put on the heavier weight. Okay, but the smaller weight that you can get away with, the better you're going to feel the bite. So as the tide slows down, you just slip the old one off, right? And we're back again. Same setup. We're going to slip a new one on. Clean up the knot. Good to go. So, you know, the most important thing is when you're tying on your surgeon's knot at the bottom, make sure that this loop is big enough to slide over the biggest weight that you intend to fish with. So if you're only going to be fishing a place that has minimal tide, you know, you can get away with a smaller loop, which gives you, you know, the less of this that you have interfering, the more you will feel that bite at the top, okay? Another nice thing about this is, on my setup, people tie high-low rigs. This becomes a high-low rig if you got like a bottom sweeper style jig head, because all you're gonna do now is take that jig head, do the same thing, slide it through, wrap it around, and now we stick a hook up here on our dropper loop, okay? We've pretty much got our own high-low rig. So I'm gonna do the same thing on this dropper loop, and again, the most important thing is that you make sure that your line diameter can fit through the eye of your hook, which can be challenging sometimes. I got to use pliers sometimes when I'm going on a smaller hook. That your hook will fit through the loop that you made. Make sure it's long enough. And now we've got a hook up, I don't know, 11 inches, and then a bottom sweeper on the bottom. So we're fishing a high-low rig, 2 different types of hooks, and we're ready to go. The other thing I like about this setup is you never know from day to day what you're going to get into, okay? Or what kind of structure you're going to be fishing, or how the bite's going to be. I typically, when I'm talk fishing, 90% of the time, I will use Gamakatsu, or I don't like the brand drop necessarily, but I use the Gamakatsu. I use 3/0 octopus, I think so you can see it, octopus hooks. I buy them in the value packs. That's what I use most of the time. Now, if you're fishing somewhere that has monster tog, if you're consistently catching 8 to 10 pound tog, I would recommend putting on a 5/0 hook. If you're catching, you know, barely keeper size all the time, then you can get away with a 2 or 3/0 hook. And we don't have a whole lot of monsters here in Virginia like they do up in New Jersey. So we use smaller hooks. Another thing that I will use occasionally is when the bite is short all the time. Like some days they're just not committing to the bite. Little trick, you can switch over to these O'Shaughnessy treble hooks. This is a size 6, but you can get away with a bigger size. And that'll sometimes be the difference maker in catching more fish than what you were catching before. So I hope you see the benefits of tying your own, because you can make your own micro adjustments if you want to fish deeper, if you want to fish shallower. If you're using bigger hooks, if you're using smaller hooks, if you're using bigger weights, smaller weights, you can make the adjustments in your knots to fit exactly what you're doing. You know, if you're fishing great big boulders on a bridge or a shoreline, as opposed to fishing a shipwreck with a bunch of rebar, you may change up what type of hook you're using. You may change up what kind of weight you're using. You may change up how far off the bottom you want to be, right? So those micro adjustments are going to be the best way to separate you from the other guys on the water. So I hope some of you guys enjoy. Hopefully I'll see you out there on the water here soon. Post some pictures of your tog below if you want. Comment, like, subscribe if it's something you're interested in. We'll continue to talk about all things saltwater fishing, freshwater fishing, because that's that time of the year for us. So we'll see you guys on the next one.